up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today it's my April wrap-up. It is gonna be weird lighting. The sun is setting, it's like 6:30 p.m. So I did read 6 books this month, 5 physical books and then 1 audiobook. It was a pretty good reading month. I think on average, well, there were a couple in here that weren't great, but we did have a couple of 4 stars, no 5 stars this month. So first up was the one that I was reading on spring break. Yeah, it's a biography of Pocahontas. So we were in Medicine Park, which is in like southwest Oklahoma, and it's tribal land. I think it's Comanche land. I could be wrong. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. It kind of reads like a textbook, so it was just a little bit dry at times, but it is by a woman named Paula Gunn Allen. She's like the recognized founder of Native American studies. She seems to be a pretty knowledgeable figure, so I figure it's good to read a book by somebody who has done the research. So in this we dive into obviously Pocahontas, but also John Smith, John Rolfe, and then just the Powhatan tribe, as well as a little bit of like the English monarchy at the time. And I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty much like the Disney movie and that 2005 Terrence Malick film called The New World that I'm obsessed with, that even made me interested in reading more about her and kind of wanting to get the true story. The cool thing that Gunn Allen does that is very unique to this particular book, and why I picked this one out versus other like Pocahontas books, is because she gives a really rich description and cultural context of the time. She's really meticulous about adding in details and kind of explaining how, yes, we have John Smith's journals only. We don't have actually any like writing from Pocahontas herself, so her story is coming through the lens of other people. He was obviously coming from England, which was a lot more technologically advanced at the time than the Powhatan tribe was. He simply wasn't familiar with the customs, and so a lot of what she does in here is trying to give us kind of an insight into what the misconceptions probably were. And one of those things is essentially their entire romantic relationship. He also thought at one point in time that he was going to be beheaded. According to the customs of the tribe at the time, it was more of like an initiation ceremony into the tribe, and most likely the reason why she like threw her body on top of his is because she was telling the tribe that she recognized him from like a spiritual dream that she had. She was identifying him as somebody important. He kind of interpreted her actions as like romantic. That's kind of the truth that Gunn Allen tries to get to with this book. If you're interested in having like the Disney illusion totally shattered, then this book is for you. I gave it 4.5 stars. Okay, next up is one that I really didn't enjoy. I ended up skimming like the last half and ended up giving it 2.5 stars, and that is Super Doom by Melissa Broder. I've read Broder's fiction and her essays, love all of that. Not a big fan of her poetry. And honestly, it almost sounds like she isn't either. She basically says, so this is a selection of her best poems from 4 previous collections that are, I believe, now out of print. She literally says in the introduction something like, I don't even know where these poems came from, I don't know what inspired me, but you know, sort of take them or leave them, take from them what you can. Like I said, I sped read through a good chunk of them. I literally only have 3, 4, 5. I have 5 little tabs. I think only 3 of them are poems. And the problem is that they're just so contemporary. They just reek of modernism, if that makes any sense. Like, they're just nonsensical. I feel like I understood maybe 3 of them, or felt like I could somehow relate to at least those 3, but everything else was just, yeah. It literally was just like random words put together. My brain was not computing them at all. So my opinion is that she should stick to fiction and maybe essays. That contemporary poetry is just not, I don't know. I didn't get really anything out of it. Unless you are into modern nonsensical poetry, then maybe you'll love this. Next up was the audiobook that I listened to. This was a subscriber recommendation for Poland, so it checks the box for Poland for my Reading Around the World challenge. This was a Nobel Prize winner, and that was Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. I went in not knowing a lot, and it probably would have helped to at least have read like the blurb, so I would have known that it was a mystery and was really rich in Symbolism, I think the subscriber who recommended did say that. It was like rich in symbolism and like Polish history. So I think maybe if you had a little bit of background knowledge of that, it probably would have helped me get through the book a little bit easier. There were definitely parts where I was hanging on and I kept listening, and I'm glad I did to the end because there is a twist at the end. There were definitely times where I was like, I know that there's stuff going over my head that I'm just not familiar with, that I'm like not understanding. But I loved the narrator. It's narrated by a Polish woman. She has a lovely dulcet voice. There are some magical realism elements to it. Like it definitely has a strong magical realism presentation to it, so that can be tricky. For me, I don't know why. It's just never been one of my favorite things to read about. So our main character is an older woman. Her name is Janina, and she lives in a very remote part of Poland, near the border, I think, and she takes care of houses when people go during the winter months to like a warmer place. She just kind of keeps an eye on things, basically. And she has like nicknames for all of her neighbors, like very odd names. There's another guy named Bigfoot. Well, Bigfoot winds up dead at the very beginning of the novel. That's kind of the thing that sets the plot in motion. Anyway, the body count starts to rise, and so she's an astrologist, and so she tries to use astrology to like uncover who did it. I assume the reason why it won a Nobel Prize is because the themes are very universal. Like she's exploring some really big themes. So I had said good versus evil, animal liberation, and animal cruelty. She like directly mentions. Also personal freedom, that's another thing that she kind of dives into. And the main character is really sensitive to the plight of animals, and she like sees herself as a conduit for them to get revenge. And it is a little bit bloody. There is some animal death. So if you love a story with like a quirky, unreliable narrator, and like stories of vengeance, because it's kind of a vengeance story, then you'll probably like this one. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. Then next up was another one for my Reading Around the World challenge. This is for Mozambique. This is Confession of the Lioness by Mia Quoto. I am not 100% sure if I'm saying his name right. And it is a man, because I thought it was a woman at first because his name is Mia, but it's not. It takes place in a village, like a remote village called Kulumani in Mozambique in Africa. And essentially what is happening is there are lion attacks. And so the villagers are trying to figure out what the heck is going on. They even hire a hunter to come in and hunt the lions. His name is Archangel Bullseye, so heck of a name for a hunter. Yeah, this is another one that has some magical realism elements to it. It is told from 2 different perspectives, and they're kind of written like diary entries, if you like that. So we have Miriamar, I think is how you are supposed to say her name. She is the sister of one of the girls who was attacked, one of the victims. And then the other perspective is the hunter. And pretty quickly, like the authenticity of the attacks comes into question because the villagers are noticing like odd behavior in the lions. It's not just that they're mauling people. There's also like clothes that were like ripped down from the clothesline and like other random things that are more human-like that are happening. And so there is a point where we're like, is it lions? Or is it supposed to be like the spirits of lions? Is it like a superstitious thing? Is it people pretending to be lions and actually the killers are just other villagers, maybe from like a rival village or something like that? I said in my notes, thematically, it's kind of exploring the rub between ancient tradition and modern culture because our 2 characters exemplify those 2 things. So the sister of the girl who was mauled, it kind of represents like tradition and older ways and the sort of the village itself. And then obviously the hunter with his big modern gun kind of represents the modern world. And then on a macro scale, it's kind of examining the oppression of women as well. It wasn't a page turner for me, but it explores some really important themes. And I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. And then finally, the last book of the month was Olive Blake's The Atlas Paradox. So this is book 2 in the Atlas series. I believe it's a trilogy. Book 3 is already out. I'm like a little bit late to the hype probably. And I really liked it. I do understand some of the critiques that people give it because it is very, these books are very much like vibes. It's a lot of vibes. Dark academic vibes, magic, fantasy, all of that. A lot of people are a little bit annoyed that they tend to be over 400 pages, but they don't feel like enough plot happens. I feel like there was a little bit more plot in this one. but there is still also all of the drama between the characters, to the point where it does get a little bit old, to be honest. I think the author just really loves writing witty comebacks and like sexual tension and all of that, and so there is so much of that because she just enjoys writing it. At least that's what it seems like. And I think for book 1, that's totally appropriate. It makes sense. It's like exposition. We're building up, you know, we're sort of developing our characters and like pitting them against each other and seeing how they sort of like their dynamics between each other. I think we could have like done a little less of that in book 2, and gotten a little bit into the plot a little bit more. We already know they all hate each other, but also kind of simultaneously all want to sleep with each other. Like, we kind of get it. We got it in book 1, and we still get so much of that in book 2. I feel like it could have been trimmed down just a little bit. Her writing style itself is very verbose, and I feel like that could have been trimmed down a little bit too. Like, I don't feel like it fully needed to be 400 pages. I think you get into it after a while, but it feels like almost a little bit clunky at first. I like to speed read when I can, and I feel like it takes so long to get through a sentence. And it kind of reminds me of writers who, and I know because I've done this before, like you search up a longer, fancier sounding synonym for the word that you actually would have chosen. The descriptions end up sounding like really formal and kind of stiff because like a common normal word was replaced with its like more formal cousin, if that makes any sense. I will say there was more plot that happened. We get some time travel in this one, so that's a lot of fun. Relatively quickly get sort of the cliffhanger of book 1 answered, which I appreciated, not having to like wait for like 100 pages or something for that to kind of be resolved. We learn that the society's archives might be sentient, which is a really cool concept. Like, I was not expecting that at all. Like, it's the idea is that like the archives are like feeding off of the people in the Alexandrian society. I hope that that's further explored in book 3 because it was definitely not fully explored in book 2. I definitely will read book 3 for sure, but I just have to kind of mentally prepare myself a little bit for kind of a more wordy writing style. All said and done, I did give it 4 stars, so I did like it. All right, guys, that is the 5 books that I read in April. Thank you so much if you recommended any of these to me for my Reading Around the World challenge or otherwise. Let me know what you read in April, and I will see you soon for, I think, another writing vlog. So I will see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.